Orders of the day.
Ballot item number 14, Order M178, second reading of Bill 178, an act to amend the Taxation Act 2007 to provide for a non-refundable tax credit to encourage children's extracurricular activities. Mr. Blais.
Recognize the member from Nepean.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move a second reading of Bill 178, an act to amend the Taxation Act 2007 to provide for a non-refundable tax credit to encourage children's extracurricular activities.
Mr. Blais has moved second reading of Bill 178, an act to amend the Taxation Act 2007 to provide for a non-refundable tax credit to encourage children's extracurricular activities. Pursuant to Standing Order 100, the member has 12 minutes for your presentation.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and good afternoon, colleagues. Promoting Leisure Activities for Youth Act 2024. Play. It's very simple. We all remember the joys of playing growing up. Over time, we've learned more and more about the physical, mental health, and academic benefits of play. For our kids, it can be as easy as running around outside or picking up a ball and bouncing it with their friends. But participating in sports and extracurricular activities as a child can help set you up for a healthier lifestyle as we age. And while it is sometimes harder for us old guys to play, it remains a critically important life skill and health habit, one that is much easier if it's developed at an earlier age. As a dad, one of my greatest joys is seeing the important life lessons my son takes away from his participation in sport. Important lessons about fitness, about teamwork, leadership, and commitment. The ability to persevere through difficult moments, to remember that it's never over until it's over. In fact, Madam Speaker, one of the important benefits of sports was recently brought to my attention and I think is particularly important and poignant given what's happened in the legislature this week. 94% of women in the C-suite played sports, including 52% of them playing high-intensity university sports. 3/4 of women in leadership surveyed that a background in sport can help accelerate their careers. En tant que père, l'une de mes plus grandes joies est de voir les leçons de vie importantes sur la condition physique, le travail d'équipe, le leadership et l'engagement que mon fils apprend grâce à sa participation au sport. Now, during the pandemic, too many of our kids were forced to put the ball down. They were forced to stop playing. Recess was non-existent. Organized sports were canceled or seriously watered down. Many kids were stuck indoors, and their physical and mental health suffered. Coming out of the pandemic, families are facing an affordability crisis not experienced in a generation. With higher grocery prices, higher mortgage payments, higher energy costs, families are tightening their belts. And while we can debate until the cows come home the cause of the affordability crisis, one thing is for certain. It's impacting our kids, and it's making it harder for families to afford many of the extras. Families of all shapes and sizes, of all income levels, are looking for ways to save. For some, this means cutting out the little extras. For too many, Madam Speaker, it means cutting out essentials. But we must do everything that we can to ensure that our kids' physical and mental health doesn't suffer as a result. Fee inflation is pushing too many kids out of sports. Too many families can no longer afford to participate in organized sports and extracurricular activities. Nous devons faire tout ce qui est dans notre pouvoir pour que la santé physique et mentale de nos enfants ne souffre pas. Trop de familles n'ont pas le moyen d'inscrire leurs enfants à des activités sportives et extrascolaires organisées. In Ontario, the richest province in the country, in Ontario, 1 in 4 kids from middle-class families don't participate in any organized activity or sport. 1 in 4. And that number gets worse as income levels go down. Think about it. 1 in 4 middle-class kids don't participate in any organized activity or sport. What could be more middle class, Madam Speaker, than waking up Saturday morning, getting the kids to the rink with a hockey bag in one hand and your Timmies in the other? Or heading to the field on Friday night to see the human cluster of kids surrounding the soccer ball as it crisscrosses the field. That, for many, is the Ontario dream. And 1 in 4 middle-class kids can't participate. But with skyrocketing fees, too many families can't afford to keep their kids playing. Moreover, Madam Speaker, in a recent report by Participaction, only 39% of children and youth ages 5 to 17 in Canada met the recommendation of 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous intensive physical activity every day. 39%. We need to get more of our kids playing, and making it easier for mom and dad's pocketbook is a great place to start. Giving parents some financial relief, making it financially more viable to put their kids or to keep their kids in sports and extracurricular activities can make a real difference in their lives. It will make our kids healthier. Healthier kids means healthier adults. Healthier adults means reduced burden on our healthcare system. We know the strains that our healthcare system is facing at the moment, Madam Speaker. We have 2.2 million Ontarians without a family doctor. That number is going to double in the next 3 years. We have emergency rooms that are closing, sometimes for a couple hours, sometimes for a couple days, sometimes for a couple weekends, sometimes we fear maybe permanently. Everything we can do to create a healthier population, we should be doing. We need to start to view children's sports and physical activity as a critical and integrated part of our healthcare system. Because if we can be healthy and stay healthy, we can stay out of the doctor's office and we can stay out of the hospital. Nous proposons de permettre aux parents de choisir plus facilement de faire participer leurs enfants à des activités de loisirs. Nous voulons que le choix soit un peu plus facile. Si elle est adoptée, la loi sur la promotion des activités de loisirs pour les jeunes créera un crédit d'impôt non remboursable de $1,000 pour les activités extrascolaires pour les enfants. Madam Speaker, what does this bill do? This bill proposes to make it a little bit easier for parents to choose to keep their kids in leisure activities. We want the choice to play to be a little bit easier. If passed tonight, and I hope the government will join us in voting for this, if passed, the Promoting Leisure Activities for Youth Act would create a $1,000 non-refundable tax credit for children's extracurricular activities. We want this to be as inclusive as possible, Madam Speaker. These activities would range from anything from hockey and football to drama and art. Our goal, and as I mentioned, it's a goal that we hope the government will join us in, is to help families to keep their kids playing. And Madam Speaker, over the last number of months, Ontario Liberals have proposed an array of affordability measures to help families. Before Christmas last year, we proposed removing the HST from home heating. That proposal for a common-sense tax break was rejected by the government. We are debating here tonight a proposal to create a $1,000 tax credit for families to keep their kids physically fit and engaged in extracurricular activities, and we hope the government will join us in that. Earlier this week, we proposed a massive tax cut to small businesses, a small business tax cut that would save those businesses up to $18,000 a year, over $1,000 a month, Madam Speaker, to help small businesses, which are the heart of our economy, continue to invest in their communities, continue to invest in human resources and skills development in our communities across the province, to ensure that we have that workforce that we need, to ensure that those services are being provided in our communities, and to ensure that the economic benefits are achieved from all their hard work and their creativity as entrepreneurs. Ontario Liberals are proposing common-sense tax measures to help Ontarians during these difficult economic times. And we hope that the government will join us in that common sense approach. Costs, Madam Speaker, costs should not be the barrier to the academic, the mental health, the physical health, and the social benefits that extracurricular activities provide. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Further debate? I recognize the member from Oakville.
Thank you very much, Speaker. It's always a great opportunity to be able to speak here to private members' business. I'd like to begin my remarks with a little bit of background on the current economic situation we're seeing here in Ontario and, frankly, all of Canada, Speaker. We're here to discuss the issue of affordability, perhaps the most pressing issue facing Ontarians today. Much like the rest of the world, Ontario continues to face economic uncertainty. High interest rates from the Bank of Canada, high inflation, the federal carbon tax, which of course the Ontario Liberals and their leader, the Queen of the Carbon Tax herself, are so fond of. These challenges are putting very real pressures on the household budgets of every family in this province. So much so, Speaker, that the average Ontarian will tell you they feel like they are living in the middle of a recession, even though we aren't technically in one. This is all too telling of the difficulty that people, especially families, are dealing with right now. In the face of these difficulties, our government was left to make a choice. We could either raise taxes, cut back on spending, and put the well-being of our people, families, and businesses at risk, or we could take a different approach, Speaker, one which invests in the successful future of Ontario communities and builds a strong economy that benefits everyone, all while keeping costs down. So we made a clear decision to stick with a plan we know is working, a plan that puts people and families first and brings their bright future even closer to the present, all without raising the cost of taxes on people living and working here in Ontario. That means no new taxes, no new tolls, no new fees, Speaker. The people of our province are being heard when they tell us that is what they want. We are choosing to help the hard-working families of this province through targeted, responsible investments and relief measures that have meaningful and impactful results, which is something that I'm afraid cannot be said about the proposed measure brought forth by the Liberal member of Orleans here today. Speaker, for a moment, I'd like to address viewers watching today's debate from home to make something very clear. The proposal by the Liberals does not mean that you or your family will receive $1,000 back in tax returns. This is a terrible misconception that I sincerely hope my colleagues in the Liberal side of the House are not trying to take advantage of. In reality, Speaker, this so-called support would only give families a small percentage that they wouldn't even see for up to 16 months in the next tax return in the following year. When you take that into consideration, that the Liberals want to impose a carbon tax in Ontario, this simply does not make sense. With this bill, Liberals are proposing to hand out an insignificant pittance to families only to take even more money from them later. As the gas pump, the grocery store, paying their bills, and everywhere in between. At every turn, the Liberals want to find a new tax to impose on the hardworking families and people of this province. This proposal seems to make an insincere attempt to misleading Ontarians into thinking they won't make life more expensive than it already is if given the chance.
I just want to caution the member about language. You need to withdraw. Thank you.
But you don't have to take it from me. Take it from the Liberals themselves, Speaker. When they were in power in 2010, they introduced a similar measure called the Ontario Children's Activity Tax Credit, only to scrap it in 2017. Speaker, do you know why they intended...
My apologies to the member. I recognize the member from Don Valley East.
The member across didn't withdraw his remarks.
I did hear him say withdraw. He can continue with...
Withdraw. Obviously, you weren't paying attention. Speaker, do you know why they decided to scrap it? Because it turns out that it ended up benefiting higher income families who are less likely to actually need the money in supporting their kids in extracurricular activities. Their plan completely backfired, Speaker, just as I fear this proposal would backfire again if this proposal were to go through. But this time, it won't be the Liberals paying the price for their own mistakes, Speaker. The only ones who will end up paying more would be the Ontario families who simply can't afford any more of the Liberals' expensive and bad ideas. Now, if that isn't convincing enough, Speaker, all you need to do is take a closer look at the federal Liberals, their cousins in Ottawa, and the legacy of scrapping a similar policy, in fact, just like this one. From 2017 onwards, the Trudeau federal Liberals, the cousins of the provincial Liberals here, eliminated the Children's Fitness Tax Credit and the Children's Art Tax Credit. Speaker, do you care to ask why they eliminated it? For the same reason that the Liberals under Kathleen Wynne decided to scrap their own program, because it disproportionately benefited high-income families that didn't need this help. So much so, in fact, that the Department of Finance Canada released a report in 2017 that found there was little evidence to support the idea that these tax credits were effective at all. Not only does the report indicate that these programs were disproportionately helping families with higher incomes, it showed that the programs failed to get even more kids enrolled in extracurricular activities. I simply don't understand, Speaker. If the Liberals here at Queen's Park and Ottawa discontinued these failed programs themselves, why are they trying to déjà vu and bring them back? All I see here, Speaker, is the same old policies, same old mistakes, and same old Liberals. Speaker, they just don't get it. They'll cost Ontarians more, and they know it. I'd like to put our differences aside for a minute here. And myself, as a father of 4 children, I understand the importance,
Order in the
like
House.
the member
I
opposite,
need to hear the member that's presenting.
how important it is to have children in extracurricular and sports activities and for their well-being. I know that many colleagues from all political stripes in this House, also who are parents, understand the importance of having kids in all these extracurricular activities. At the end of the day, we all want the same thing. That is to give our kids the best childhood they could possibly have. As I said in my remarks, these are difficult and challenging times for parents and families in the province. Life is getting more expensive, and families across the province are paying more and more for their bills. But what if they didn't have to, Speaker? What if instead of having to choose between filling up to gas to drive their kids to hockey practice and making a fresh, nutritious lunch for school, they could afford both? It was this question in mind that our government set out to build our plan to keep costs down for families in Ontario. The results of our actions speak for themselves, Speaker. Our government's efforts to keep costs down will total $8.4 billion in relief for Ontario families and individuals in 2023-2024 alone. That's $1 billion, not million, billion savings for Ontario families. These are real dollars saved by real families, and these savings can be seen across the province. I have a simple proposal to make for my Liberal colleagues in opposition, Speaker. If Bonnie Crombie and the rest of her team want to truly help parents who are struggling with the high cost of living, all they had to do was vote in favour of our government's 2024 budget today. But instead, they voted against giving parents relief. The budget contained real cost-saving measures to help Ontario families. For starters, there's an extension to the gas and fuel tax cuts, which we implemented in 2022. That's a saving of 10 cents per litre every single time you go to the pump and fill up your tank, go to work, and take your kids to hockey practice. Then there's our protections from any future or Liberal NDP carbon taxes here in the province of Ontario. That gives confidence and certainty to families who need it right now, that they won't have to pay more to heat their homes or buy groceries. Also, how about our new One Fare program, Speaker? Talk about the so-called $1,000 Liberal tax credit. One Fare is saving riders across the entire GTA $1,600 a year. No more paying double fare if you want to take the GO train down to see the Jays or the Leafs, or go away with your family on the weekend to Niagara. For the parents whose kids are all growing up and starting to save in the next chapter of their lives at college or university, our government is extending the tuition freeze for publicly assisted post-secondary schools here in the province for 3 more years.
Order
That's
in the
another
House.
$1,600 in savings per year if you go to university and $350 if you go to college. Real dollars for real people. I haven't even talked about the $23 billion we're investing to build more schools and childcare spaces here in the province, or about our ban on new road tolls on 400 series highways and our freeze on driver's license and photo card fees that are saving drivers $66 million over the next 5 years. Like I said, more relief and cost-saving measures than I have time to count. To wrap up, I'd just like to thank my colleagues who joined our Premier, our Minister of Finance and our government in voting for the 2024 budget. I wish the members opposite could say the same. But thank you very much, Speaker.
Further debate? I recognize the member from Humber River, Black Creek.
Thank you, Speaker, and I want to congratulate and thank the member from Orléans for tabling this motion today. I must say that his debate here is always well-researched, thoughtful, and often very sharp-witted, which we need here. We heard a government response that wasn't so much sharp-witted as it was sharp. And upon listening, and I must digress, the amount of times the carbon tax is mentioned in the chamber, I actually believe that they may not, in fact, be interested in removing it because I don't think they'd have anything else to talk about if the carbon tax was actually removed. I have a sneaking suspicion about that. But on returning to the substance of this motion, I'm proud to stand and rise and speak on behalf of any measure to support our children and our youth here in the province of Ontario. It's very important. I know coming out of the pandemic, where many programs did not have the opportunity to even run, coming out of that, we are looking at ways to incentivize and to bring kids back and youth into programming. Not just sports, not just music. There's countless ways in which this is possible, and certainly this motion here is an attempt to do that. I know that it's here in good faith. I have to say, as a father of 2 young sons, having a child is truly a moment in your life where you could measure everything that's happened before and after. Yeah. It changes you as a person. It is something you can only realize when you have that child. And what would you not be willing to do for your own children? Certainly programs that we send them to, extracurriculars, are not just important, but they're essential for our children. And we must remove any form of barrier that exists. Certainly there's many ways of doing it. Yes, you can invest in programming and find many different ways to do that. And yes, you can put more money in general into parents' pockets. But incentivizing it in this way is also an important way, and a way that will have children go out there. Many parents face barriers of time and certainly finances to be able to put their children in important programs like this. And we don't want to see financial barriers. Many parents don't have the time or money to be able to enroll them. But for those that do, it's an average of $2,500 a year that parents spend to be able to give important opportunities for their children to reach their best potential, not just in learning skills and sports and new talents, but some of these extracurriculars may point them in a new direction that could change their lives. Skills, friendships, social skills, motivation, the list goes on, and one could sit here an entire day explaining why this is a good idea and why it's important to incentivize, give the parents the help they need, and to do the best for our children. Because after all, what could be more important than supporting our children? For they are our future. We all say it, but once in a while we're offered the opportunity to actually make it a reality. I believe this is one of those days. I'm proud to stand in support of this measure, and I thank the member for tabling the bill today.
For the debate, I recognize the member from Don Valley West.
Thank you, Speaker. I am pleased to rise today to debate Bill 178, the Promoting Leisure Activities for Youth Act, the PLAY Act, especially since I was not given the opportunity yesterday to debate Bill 180, the Budget Act. Thank you to my colleague from Orleans for his excellent debate and presentation on this very important bill. Speaker, this government promised during the 2018 election to give middle-income families a tax break, a promise that remains broken 6 long years later. Bill 178 is an opportunity to help fulfill that promise by supporting children and their families to make extracurricular activities for kids more affordable. This government has shirked their responsibilities and spent much of the last 6 months talking about what more the federal government should do to make life more affordable, because this Conservative government cancelled cap and trade. And by the way, under this government's non-existent plan to protect the environment, the amount of green energy in our grid has decreased from 92% under the Liberal government to 86% under this one. And oh, by the way, the Liberal government eliminated smog days, which still benefits the health of Ontarians, including the kids we're talking about today in Bill 178. What this government does not talk about are all the things the federal government has done to make life more affordable, like introducing $10 a day childcare, the rollout of which has been completely bungled by this government, or the Canada Child Benefit, which has lifted over 400,000 children, many of them here in Ontario, out of poverty, or the Housing Accelerator Fund, which granted Ontario municipalities hundreds of millions of dollars in funding to expedite the development of affordable housing. So today we're here to talk about something this government could do that was not done in their budget, which I was not allowed to debate yesterday, that would help them keep their broken promise to give middle-income families a tax break right here at home in Ontario. Speaker, we know that extracurricular activities are important for children's development. We know that children suffered during the COVID pandemic from a lack of in-person learning and also a lack of access to friends and learning opportunities at their extracurricular activities. So supporting kids by helping more families access extracurricular activities is even more important now, as more and more kids are struggling with mental health challenges. This bill is a fantastic opportunity for this government to support Ontario families by making their kids' activities more affordable. Whether it's a sport, music, arts, or STEM program, Bill 178 will help make those activities more accessible to kids and families by making them more affordable. And that will help kids develop and grow, and it will support their mental health. Bill 178 would encourage extracurricular activities and the well-being of children at a time when so many children are struggling with mental health in an environment where digital fatigue and social media burnout are becoming increasingly common because phone usage is up post-pandemic, impacting their ability to engage meaningfully with the world and their peers. Regardless of party, I believe all members want the children of Ontario to thrive and be healthy, mentally and physically. Research has found that engaging in extracurricular activities helps reduce stress, improve mood, and provide a sense of purpose and fulfillment for students. It develops students' cultural and social capital, says the People for Education of Ontario. With the affordability challenges our province is facing post-COVID, we must not neglect extracurriculars for children. This bill will provide an incentive for families and allow children to participate in the activities they want to participate in. Giving $1,000, up to $1,000 back to families would help offset the fees that may prevent them from being entered into sports, arts, or outside opportunities. The Education Minister proposed measures relating to restrictions on cell phone use and vaping. Bill 178 complements these efforts to reduce distraction in classrooms by giving kids more opportunity for positive activities to engage in. I encourage all members to support Bill 178 to support our kids and families by making extracurricular activities more affordable. Where the budget failed to support kids with after-school programs, this bill steps up to do just that. Thank you.
Further debate? I recognize the member for Hamilton West and Castor Dundas.
Thank you very much, Speaker, and it is my honour to rise to speak to this bill, Promoting Leisure Activities for Youth. I didn't realize the acronym PLAY. It's pretty clever. I think that's a good bill, needs a good acronym. But before I address the merits of this bill, I want to just talk to the MPP from Burlington, who talked about his government's fiscal record, and I think I would like to remind the member that this government, this provincial government, this Ford government, is the most indebted in debt and deficit in the history of Ontario. And they've increased that every year since they took office. But at the same time, When it comes to spending per person on the things that are important, especially to low-income families like this bill is addressing, this government is last when it comes to per capita spending in the province. And so he did say that his...
my apologies. I recognize the member from Oakville.
Just point of order. I'd just like perhaps the member could correct for the record the writing and get all our facts correct.
The member, point of order, the member can get up to correct their own mistake. And it is the member from Oakville, if you're...
Yes, so the member from Oakville, I guess, was wanting to make clear that on his behalf I shared that this government has the biggest debt and deficit in the history of Ontario. And the member from Oakville did also say that your government's record speaks for itself. I couldn't agree more, because under your government's watch, more families than ever before are living in poverty. Under your government's watch, 2.4 million people don't have access to a doctor, and that includes kids. And more food bank users in this province than ever before, and the vast majority of people that use food banks are children. So it's very disappointing to see a government that has failed children in this province and continues to fail families in this province, not supporting a bill that was trying to give parents that are already struggling the ability to look after their kids and do right for their kids. So this private member's bill does propose a new non-refundable tax credit to allow Ontario families to help cover the cost of enrolling their kids in physical activities, arts programming, tutoring, camps, all the things that kids need. And we know during the COVID pandemic, our kids suffered greatly. They lost many years, they lost out in schools and graduations, and their families are struggling. So we should all join in this House to support anything that can help kids in this province. I don't understand why the government wouldn't want to support a bill that's aimed to help children in this province. We know there's an affordability crisis in this province. I stood here in my place the other day and asked the government about what they were going to do about families that cannot afford baby formula in this province. Baby formula. You know what they talked about, Andrea? Carbon tax. So I don't think they get it. I don't think they understand that parents are doing everything they can to give this advantage that's very important to families. I mean, they're cash-strapped. They can hardly afford, to keep a roof over their house or afford groceries, but they still want to do right by their kids, and you would think this government would want to support a bill like this that does that. I mean, we did have a tax credit like this. Unfortunately, the Progressive Conservative government failed to renew the children's activity tax, and reinstating this would have allowed us to pick up where we left off in making kids' extracurricular more affordable and accessible. We all know, parents, grandparents, that we need to make it easier for kids to get active through extracurriculars like sports, music, arts, and other programs. We know that there's a mental health crisis in our province. We know that there's like a 2-year waiting list for kids to be seen when they have mental health concerns under this government. These kinds of programs support kids and help kids feel healthier, both physically and mentally, and I don't understand why this government wouldn't want to support that. I mean, this provides for families who are stretched thin, as I described, and they, just like all of us, want enriching experiences for their kids. Extracurricular activities teach vital skills, and I agree with the MPP from Orléans said, the importance of these activities. I also want to address the fact that newcomers in our province, they struggle also not only financially but to integrate their kids in programs that provide connections and community, and that's what extracurricular activities provide. And by voting against this, this government is choosing to turn their backs on newcomers who are trying to integrate into our communities and provide their kids with an opportunity. I would just like to say that, in Hamilton, we had a program called Skate the Dream. We know that hockey has got to be one of the most expensive sports for parents. We had a low-income neighborhood in Hamilton where they almost had to close the hockey program there because parents couldn't afford the enrollment fees. They couldn't afford the equipment, right? It's really expensive. And so we had a program called Skate the Dream that we fundraised for and volunteers to help make sure that kids in that low-income neighborhood who loved to play hockey, who showed up kids on their own showed up with their hockey equipment over their shoulder on the bus to play. That's how much they wanted to do it. And so, we wanted to help them out. And so, parents, volunteers, community groups, they're playing their part to help kids. Why is this government not playing their part and showing that they care? Because by passing this bill, we'll be investing in health and development of the next generation. And we've heard that this fosters community engagement and active lifestyle, and we know we need to do that at an early age. The early years are so important, 0 to 5. Those are fundamental for kids' well-being and for positive outcomes later in years. It's about healthy childhood development, and this extracurricular activity plays a critical role in that. So, why are we limiting these enriching experiences to children whose parents can afford this? We know that as a community we want all children to have this opportunity. And so I appreciate the member bringing this forward. I think it's an important bill. I think it addresses a gap where children are being left behind and ignored by this government. And I hope, despite what the member from Oakville said, that the government will change their mind and support this important bill. Thank you.
Further debate? Further debate? Further debate? Seeing none, the member has 2 minutes for response.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleagues from Humber River Black Creek, from Don Valley West, and from Hamilton West, Ancaster, and Dundas for their remarks this evening. I think it's clear that the academic, the mental health, and the physical health benefits of playing sports, of participating in extracurricular activities are clear. The opportunities to improve academic results and test scores as a result of kids being more active after school, whether that's in sports or other extracurricular activities, is clear. The health benefits of kids who play sports, who become adults who play sports and stay active, should be abundantly clear. And when we're trying to deal with a health crisis, when we're trying to deal with a crisis in our schools, when we're trying to ensure that we have the workforce that we need for the future, everything that we can do to enhance academic success, everything that we can do to enhance health outcomes and health benefits should be a no-brainer, Madam Speaker. Now, the member from Oakville criticized the bill because not everyone will benefit, or it won't be exactly $1,000. Well, if the litmus test to legislation in this place was that it was perfect, nothing would ever pass. I would like to propose a refundable tax credit. The rules of Parliament don't allow me to do that. I would prefer to have the government create a fund to directly help parents pay for sports registration so you can get those families that can't afford to pay it on the front end into sports. But I'm not allowed to do that, Madam Speaker. I would encourage the government to consider those kinds of options for their budget next year. And if they actually had real measures in next year's budget that would provide real relief for middle-class families, that would provide opportunities for families of all income levels to put their kids in more sports, then maybe they would get my support. But tonight I'm asking for their support to help some families keep more of their kids and put more of their kids in extracurricular.
Thank you for the enthusiasm from the supporting gallery.